Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Animators Assembled Podcast. I am joined today with the hosts, Danyo and Michael. Daniel, please say hi.
Hi.
All right, and then Michael, if you could say hello to the guest as well.
Hello to the guest as well.
All right, everybody. I'd like you all to grab a seat. You're only going to need the edge of it, though, because this is going to be an exciting episode of Animators Assembled. If you are not following us on Discord as well, we have the links to all of our social media accounts listed on the screen right now if you're watching on YouTube. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Look at that, Michael. He's taking our job.
He's gunning for our jobs.
Yeah. I'm telling you, man. We were
you did it better than we
horribly
can.
suited. Yeah.
I need some, oh, there's my dogs. I need some honey for my throat after that, because that was fun.
That seemed very taxing.
I mean, we can make this a AAA podcast to Animators Assembled ASMR.
Oh,
By
man.
all means.
True fan. True fan.
Just be like, all right, here's a transformer. You can hear the plastic. Just.
Oh man.
Dude, this is...
I mean, you know, the listeners are gonna love it.
Well, considering you're one of our like biggest listeners, and you just proved that fact by doing the intro better than we do it.
Just gotta find somebody who's got a lot of clicking joints.
Yeah.
Who's got a lot of clicking joints? Let me ring up my grandfather.
A lot of... All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of the podcast. We already kind of introduced ourselves because Javy's better at our job than we are. But yeah, Javy is Trickshot726. Would you like to talk a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so as they mentioned, my name is Javier, and I am the owner / producer / the channel Trickshot726. I've been doing stop motion animation on YouTube for about 10 years now, just shy of 10 years right now. And yeah, I love doing animation. I got a degree in film and video that I have not used for anything besides YouTube, so that's a lot of fun. But no, I enjoyed it a lot. This is a real passion of mine, and I'd like to think I'm a somewhat of an authority, at least in the stop motion community here on YouTube, on how to improve people's videos and how to make the viewing experience as fun as possible and how to bring your own unique take to animation, because there are a lot of us now. When I started, it seemed like there's like 4 people that were really good at it and like 3 others. And it's awesome to see the community grow as much as it has now. So yeah, I've been doing this for a while and I've got some things to say.
Fantastic. Well, I want to get it out of the way because I'm pretty sure I'm going to be talking about this throughout the whole video or the whole episode if I was given the chance, but I'm a big fan of yours, and I'm really grateful that you're sitting down with us and talking about everything stop motion related.
I am happy to be here. I'm a huge fan of the podcast, so I'm happy to be a guest on it finally. And yeah, ever since you guys started doing this with episode 1, I've been 100% on board with the idea of it, and I've loved to see where you guys have taken it so far.
I would also like to add that even though we've been able to like talk and have one-on-one conversations and you're now a guest on the podcast, we still geek out over you. Like, you are an incredible creator.
Yeah, it doesn't change the fact that you're Trickshot726.
We are still incredibly humbled and grateful by the fact that you've taken the time out of your day to sit down with us and chit chat. It's very cool to have this interconnected community, and considering how much of a legacy you have with the community, it's really cool to bring you into this. You're kind of one of these staple animators in the community, and to really it's honestly a pleasure and a delight to have you come from the comment section of the podcast into the
room where it
metaphorical
happens.
Booth, the digital room where it happens. And yeah, we were geeking out over your Transformers video that just dropped on the day we're recording this.
Yep.
Literally right before you came into the call. So the fact that we're able to have that like weird dichotomy between, oh, you're like an idol in a sense, and you're also like a best friend that we can just talk to. It's really cool.
He's super down to earth. He's like Thor.
Thank you.
That's a good way to put it.
I'll take it. I'll take being Thor.
Even though no one is taking away your Hawkeye street cred.
Yeah,
Like,
that
no one
is
would take
true.
my Daredevil street cred.
I'd like to see them try.
Alrighty. I feel like you could just go with the outline and do it better than even I could, but I'll try to steer the ship as best I can. So, on this episode of the podcast, for the past couple of episodes when we brought in guests, we've been talking a lot about what it takes to be a creator in this community and how you can dive into different components leading into actually making a project. We've talked a lot about the pre-production of things, so motivation and burnout. We've talked about the writing stages, the planning stages, and we've talked about voice acting and casting and bringing people in to kind of assemble all the other elements right before you actually get into the nitty and gritty of shooting. But now we're talking about crafting your image and actually composing your shots and actually doing this stop motion animation that's kind of at the core of the style of filmmaking that we do. There's a lot of planning that goes into this sort of visual aesthetic of a shot or even an entire video. Some people do storyboard drawing, some people do previs clips or test shots. Some might just skip the process of writing it down and just go for it and conjure up whatever they had in their imagination on camera. And then some might not even plan at all and just wing it with every single thing. From your experience, what technique or combination of techniques works best for your creative process? And that goes to you, Javy, first.
Thank you. I think for me, I've done all of those consistently. It's not like just a progression of like, well, when I started out, I just put some figures in front of the camera and decided to go. Things weren't the most planned out, but it was also the easiest because I could just make an entire like 3-minute video in an afternoon. But I don't know. I think it just depends on how solid of an idea I have for the sequence I'm choreographing or filming in general. Usually dialogue scenes, I don't like storyboard or choreograph too much just because I'm like, I'll put them in front and I'll usually just do a shot, reverse shot. Unless I want to be fancy with it, unless I'm feeling nasty. But for the fight sequences, I don't know, that varies. I usually try and storyboard anything that's going to be a little bit more complicated. Just because I found lately, whenever I'm at a loss, I don't like to just go with it and see what happens. Just because I like to have a little bit more of a plan with those ones. Just so if someone needs to end up on the far right side of the map next to a container that has a gun on it or something like that, I have a solid way of getting them over there. So if I don't have a plan with it, I usually end up just getting stuck looking up different reference footage or acting it out myself and pretending to be both characters and like, all right, so if this person does a left hook, right hook, uppercut, and the other person blocks, how is that going to look? How is that going to feel? And that helps a lot too, just so I can get a better idea of how the movements for each character is going to go. And then, yeah, I don't really do that much previs actually, so that one I lied about. I'm sorry about that, everybody. I let you down. First question, and I'm already lying. But yeah, usually reference footage, storyboarding, and acting out the scenes myself. That's usually what I go with. If I've got a solid idea of what I want to do, like for the recent Transformers video, the main thing I wanted to do was, since Hot Rod has like wheels on his shoulders, I wanted him to like elbow somebody and then just like spin the tire out in their face, just because I feel like that's a move that only a Transformer could do. Like there's other robots and other humanoid fights you could see that like Transformers could do, but that's a Transformer specific move. So I figured that'd be more fun to do, just since I want to take advantage of the different things that the characters can do and something that's you'd only see them being able to do. So yeah, that's a big thing I try and do with my videos.
Love it. Daniel, your move.
Yeah, that's a great way to start it off, because for me, I have no pre-production visual work whatsoever done beforehand. I do it all on the spot because it's hard for me to tell when I actually start to film things with the sets that I do have or don't have, if I'm going to be able to pull off what I had in mind. So majority of the work happens behind the scenes. I'm very much in the lines of like Tarantino doing his writing work, and I make very detailed scripts, making sure that the scripts are very visual. If ever, I will do my best as possible to make sure that it's not only in service of the narrative, but also I can actually implement it in the video. Because again, you don't want to plan ahead for you to only approach that kind of obstacle and not be able to execute your vision because you didn't have the materials to pull it off. But as soon as the day of shooting happens, I look to my surroundings. I watch a lot of movies, like I mentioned in previous episodes, so I have this memory of certain shots or scenes and sequences in film that have really connected with me and resonated with me to the level that I can try to somewhat replicate that in my own fashion. Like in Batman Under the Dark Episode 1, I have a bunch of scenes paying homage to films before, and one shot in particular was actually taken from an episode of my favorite TV show, Barry, and we were going to get to that at some point in this series. So I take a lot of inspiration from the things that I've seen and then implement them day of. Previs is a lot harder to do when you're working with action figures unless you have a steady foundation set and you know what you want to do and it's all planned out. And then working with the ideas that I have, I just try to best execute it in stop motion animation fashion, such as, shooting a gun. Haven't really gotten into storyboarding as much as I would have liked. Actually, Michael, you did my first batch of storyboarding even before I did any storyboarding for my channel, and that was for Batman Under the Dark as well. And so
it was also for Ant-Man Irredeemable.
Right.
I did storyboards for both of those projects.
Right. So I have yet to dip my toes into really previs for stop motion animation, because my process, simply put, is a camera day of and kind of just winging it on the fly, seeing what sticks, seeing what doesn't, and rolling with that.
And it's a good testament to your process too, because you mentioned how you write a lot of detail into the script. You're very much a writer's director, in which typically directors separate from the writers don't like to have too much written in the details of the script, because they want to have that autonomy and that ability to kind of expand upon the vision and interpret what's written on the page and adapt that sort of vision to the screen. Whereas as a writer director, you already know what you're looking for and you just write down the details that you're seeking out to recreate on the page, and then you try to replicate them on the screen. So I know that that's definitely your process. For me, it's kind of similar to Javy as well, but I think my answer is ultimately a combination of all of the techniques that I mentioned. So I've done the drawing of storyboards. Actually, when I was a kid, I loved drawing I would write and illustrate my own books, like little children's books type deal. I would draw little comic strips and a bunch of other things like that. I was very much a kid of the generation of Diary of a Wimpy Kid, in a sense. I loved drawing characters and I loved writing stories and kind of tying in writing and illustrating at the same time. So that was something that I was always passionate about, and I always wanted to make movies and stuff, but I could never afford a camera or editing software. I didn't even know what editing software was or could do. I didn't really understand how you could use a camera and what you shoot with it and actually piece together other stuff in order to make a movie or TV show. But I knew I wanted to do it. But in the meantime, illustrating was kind of the poor man's way of making movies for me. So storyboarding process kind of came naturally to me, and I still do that from time to time, depending on the project. I did storyboards, like I mentioned, for Daniel's Ant-Man Irredeemable, as well as Batman Under the Dark. I did storyboarding for the Captain America Patriot video I did back when, storyboarding for Daredevil Dex Returns, which I actually showed video of in that film. With that short film, I showed the pre-production process. It was a process film that tied into actually showing the stop motion animation itself. But yeah, I love doing storyboarding. I've done several previs clips or test shots of a bunch of different video ideas that I had. Like if I had a certain idea for a shot that I wanted to eventually utilize, I would quickly film it very amateurly and on the cuff, just kind of whip out whatever camera I have and whatever characters I need and just try to very roughly compose the shot so I remembered how I wanted it to look. And then when I go make that for real, I would obviously shoot it far more cleanly, far more far more quality.
Refined.
I would refine it a lot more. Thank you for the word. So storyboarding and pre-vising, that's very much a part of my process. At the same time, I also like to have a little bit of flexibility and leg room to sort of test different things out and wing it. I talk about all the time, but Bats and V Danvers, the whole idea of that trailer was I want Shazam to lightning dab Captain Marvel into a freaking water tower. That was literally the first thing that I conceived with that project. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna see if I can grab the props that I need for that. Okay, I have the water tower prop. All right, I have the figure. Let me see if I can at least do the posing. And then I would just wing the shot, and it turned out not terrible, although the shot had to be refined a lot more in post. There were a couple different versions of that shot. The idea in and of itself was what really inspired the rest of the project. So having that improv kind of at the start of the creative process too is also very helpful. So long story short of it, sometimes I do previs and storyboarding. Sometimes I just think of an idea and run with it, or sometimes I literally just don't have an idea at all and I come up with ideas as I'm shooting on the fly. And all of those techniques come into play, and it depends on the project for me as well. With all of crafting a shot, or with anything in the stop motion process, trial and error is such a big part of it. When being a creator, there are so many different little obstacles that you might have to overcome, and there are different workarounds in order to achieve ultimately the result that you're seeking out. So experiment, and hopefully you'll get to where you want to be with any project you're working on, and if not, you'll be able to learn from where maybe you didn't do as well as you thought, or you might be proud of how far you've come with certain things. So
yeah, and going off of that, I just want to say another great way to just figure out what works and what doesn't is watch movie scenes or TV show scenes that like you really liked, and watch them and rewatch them and watch them in slow motion, or at 0.25x speed if you're the Canadian lad. Nice. Just so you can try and figure out how they did what they did, or like what makes that scene work. Like, why does the punches look like they hurt more? Is it because the camera moved with the guy's fist so that it like has more emphasis on it or anything like that? Like, see what tricks they're using so you can just steal those and put them in your arsenal as well.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, hopefully you're listening to this for entertainment as well as a little bit of education. Even if this stuff doesn't work for you, at least you know what works for other people, and you can kind of get a better sense of just how unique each of us are, and yet at the same time, how similar we all are trying to go through the same process. So yeah, a bunch of these techniques can help you out, but the only way you'll know is if you try them. When it comes to utilizing these techniques, do they vary from shot to shot, or project to project, or do you maintain a consistent routine for planning all this stuff out?
It's pretty consistent at this point, but it does vary a little bit between project to project and shot to shot. Like, for example, the Jessica Jones noir film that I did, that one, I approached it very differently from like the Hawkeye and Mockingbird and Taskmaster one, since one of them is more dialogue and story heavy, and like just based on like how the shots look, because there's not as much going on in them, versus one where it's very hand-to-hand heavy and more focused on the choreography. So I'm not going to worry about looking up walking scenes in movies as much for the Jessica Jones one, whereas I'm going to be watching tons of different fight scenes for the Hawkeye Mockingbird one, mainly just for scenes with other people fighting so I can have Taskmaster copy them or something like that. So yeah, it's going to vary a little bit depending on what I'm doing. But overall, for the most part now, I write the script, and my script writing process is very different from Danyo's. I don't write out most of the action scenes that much, unless there's something very specific I want to happen. I'll just put, and they fight, or they fight and they go down this hallway kind of thing. Because I'm just getting the dialogue out now. I'll figure it out later. And then, yeah, storyboarding and reference footage, or usually reference footage, and then write it down into storyboarding, and then just use that into filming while I listen to the podcast.
Hey, nice. That's how you do it.
That's how you plug.
That's the best way to do it.
Yeah.
Listen to us chattering knuckleheads. Daniel, your answer.
Again, the fun part is kind of figuring out where each piece of the puzzle goes. And so for certain sequences like Joker and Harleen Quinzel talking in the Arkham Asylum therapy room, they have, it's just practically all dialogue, but you have to convey that in a way that doesn't feel boring, and not only assists the pacing, but also improves upon the narrative as you go along. Certain scenes, like the big heist sequence that happens in that episode, you have to figure out blocking and how to position everyone and figuring out where everything goes and trying to visualize things before they happen. It's all a shot in the dark at that point. As we've mentioned, projects are different as they come and go. They have very different elements to balance out. So whether or not your filming style works for a dialogue scene in one project may not work for a dialogue scene in another project, where different tones and different themes are being tackled. So for Ant-Man the Black Ant and Under the Dark, they are very different in tone and very different in genres. Trying to capture that on camera and trying to replicate that wouldn't necessarily work. So you're trying to hit the gray area here and making sure that it works for your particular project and making sure that that vision is executed as well as you can based on whatever you had in mind.
Yeah. So for me on my end, kind of talking similar to that, I'd like to think that I'm similar to maybe the Russo brothers in the sense that their kind of approach to different projects is very distinct with each project. Their work on sitcoms is not going to be reflective in the style that they adapt to for an action film. And their action film style is not going to tie into their drama work, because Cherry has very distinct style from Avengers Endgame and Infinity War and Civil War and The Winter Soldier, and that has a different style from Arrested Development. So because of that, because they have a different style with every project that they approach, I kind of like to think of myself in the same vein. I'm very experimental when it comes to how I approach a drama from an action scene, from dialogue to a comedic beat. My approach to a project kind of depends on the tone of the project itself a little bit. With an action scene, there's a lot more blocking and choreography and storyboarding, test shots that kind of go into that compared to maybe a comedy. It all kind of depends. If I'm trying to set up a bathos moment, then I try to make it as stereotypically dramatic as possible and suspenseful, only to undercut that with the following shot. It all depends on what I'm working on at the moment and which approaches kind of factor into that.
Yeah. Also, for anyone that is listening, bathos is an effective anticlimax created by an unintentional lapse in mood from the sublime to the trivial or ridiculous. In case you guys needed to know that. I didn't need to know that because I knew what he said exactly.
Mr. Film Majors.
But in case anyone else did, I didn't need to look it up on Google. Just
Michael uses such heavy vernacular and
big terminology.
He's very much. I
didn't know we were going to be talking about the verisimilitude of our shots and stuff.
Yeah, it makes everyone listening curmudgeon when it comes to just hearing us talk, because it's very
absolutely
because stop motion animation is the taking of photos one by one in order for you to craft an image.
In order for you to simulate movement, you play multiple frames in rapid succession.
They're all going to be commiserating in the comment section below.
And this is where our algorithm and views and everything just nosedives. Just
yep.
But yeah,
you have to have a high IQ to get it.
Yeah,
exactly. You have to have a bachelor's degree in thundering dumbassery.
But yeah, to completely answer this question for everybody here, it varies.
It should vary from person to person and from project to project. If you want it to vary from shot to shot, go for it. That might be a little bit difficult.
Yeah, I try to keep it
storyboarding one shot, and then
I do think it's important to keep in mind what kind of shot you're doing at what point in the story you're doing as well. So if I'm having a dialogue scene in like a story-driven video, the tense part of the dialogue, or like the climax of the dialogue, I'm going to try and film so it matches that, versus if I do a short dialogue scene at the end of a big fight scene where like it's more of the waning action or the falling action there, I'm going to film those completely differently. Even though they're both dialogue scenes, it could have the exact same characters, but it's just based off where it is in the story, because you don't want your shots to be completely wild and insane as the story's coming to a close, and you don't want to have a very boring shot at the most intense part of your story either. That's another thing to just keep in mind, of where are we at in the story, and does the framing and does the shot match what I'm trying to convey in the story?
Does it make sense for what it is that you're trying to
Right.
communicate. Is the meaning that you're intending the meaning that will be interpreted.
Right. And even if the styles or your production ethic does change throughout different projects, you're still going to have your input and your voice that stays consistent all throughout those projects. So I don't think you have much to worry about when it comes to, oh, am I undermining my previous work before, or am I doing a complete 180 in terms of style or fashion? Because at the end of the day, it's still you.
It's all you. It's just different gradients or variations or shades of your kind of experience.
And no one else will be able to tell it. So tell it in the best way that you can with the materials that you can use to do so.
You can have more than one vision too. You don't necessarily have to stay in one particular lane. You can adapt and diversify how you want to tell a story and what kind of story you want to tell. Another thing too, we kind of touched on how this process kind of varies from project to project and from person to person. Even if you have a consistent routine, there are still some things that might have to change and adapt. You might want to break apart those different sections of a project and approach them differently in the pre-production stage. So if you have a big action scene that you're gearing towards, maybe you're going to storyboard that particular part of it. But then if you have a dialogue scene leading into that, you might just want to wing that in terms of how you want to do a shot reverse shot, or if you want to do a shot that is comprised of both characters in the shot composition, or if you want the camera to literally pivot back and forth and just kind of follow along with what's going on. You could literally break it down from, all right, this is a dialogue moment, to this is a fight scene moment, to this is a set piece moment, and so on and so forth. You can kind of shift each component of a project into a different pre-production phase. Sometimes a certain part of a project might require more work, and then other times, not so much. Either way, it will vary, but test that out. See what works for you.
I like how our answer to a lot of these questions is, there is no one answer.
Yeah, exactly. It's all up to you. This is your baby, and you can nourish it however you want.
It's whatever you want it to be, Dave.
There's a lot of different, and again, our answers might not work for you. Our different answers, our personal experience. You might be able to try my production process, or Javy's, or Daniel's, and maybe one of ours works while the others don't, or maybe none of ours work, or maybe all of ours work. Who knows? Try it. That's the ultimate takeaway from this episode. Try it.
Try everything. Demonetize.
Hey, Daniel. Hey, I'm not the only one who cost us on the music budget this time.
Sorry, how many figures are we out on the check? I'm joking.
Too many. All of them.
All of them,
yes.
Yeah. That's also the answer. Try it.
So the next question up is, we've talked about the fact that there are various elements, and we've brought up several as we've gone through this discussion. So with making any frame or establishing an entire visual style for a project, there are different elements at play. So there's shot composition with elements in the foreground or the front of the image, and then background elements or the stuff that isn't really in focus. The movement of the camera or the movement of characters or subjects or whatever it is you have in frame in terms of objects and objective. The framing itself, how much you want to include within the shot, pointed up or pointed down or left or right, or in terms of angle, all of that stuff comes into play. There's lighting and different colors with lighting, brightness levels. There are a whole bunch of settings on the cameras or in post-production that you might want to mess with. There's focus, how much of the background you want to be seen versus how much you want blurred out compared to your subject. Aspect ratio, how big or small the frame is. So among all of the elements in creating an image, which ones do you personally enjoy working with the most when crafting your image? If there's any in particular that you can single out.
Yeah, I'd say my favorite element is probably air, just because I relate to that one the most. Was that not the question? I don't know. It varies from project to project, again, just because I try and focus on like a different aspect each time, and try and elevate my skills on different areas on different videos. Sometimes I'm like, this video, I want to try and have awesome lighting, or like improve on my lighting skills. This one, I want to try and work on more VFX or camera work or anything like that, just because trying to do better on everything in one video is very daunting, and it can also just make it seem overwhelming and be like, I don't think I can do that. So breaking it up into smaller bite-sized pieces for different projects, different shots even, makes it a lot more manageable and makes it a lot more fun, because it's more of a challenge of like, all right, this is the one thing I want to work on. I'm going to bring up the Jessica Jones one again. Just because I really liked that one. Based off of the views, I don't think everyone else did, but I did.
It was a fantastic video, and if you're listening to this right now and you still haven't seen it, please go check it out after listening to this podcast, obviously, because it's a tremendous
as
video.
well as literally the rest of his filmography.
That's true.
It's all aces.
Listen to this episode first, and then dig deeper into Trickshot's catalog of videos, just because, you know, you're going to be there all day. Let's be frank here. There's a lot to unpack, and there's a lot to digest, so good luck.
Binge watch.
I try to read every comment, so if you do leave one, I will notice it and I'll probably give you a heart react.
Hell yeah.
But anyways, for the Jessica Jones one, I really wanted to focus on the lighting and getting the mood and the tone of like that noir aesthetic, and that was a ton of fun doing that, of getting shots of like people talking through a window so it looks like we're creeping in with her, or just like the really hard lighting in her office, with like just like really deep shadows and going across your face, and you just see like the shadows from the door or anything like that. That was a ton of fun. And then I don't know, I keep referencing like the same, I'm gonna pick a different video. And then like the Ant-Man and the Wasp short one I did, that one was just like, let's just try and do the Ant-Man and Wasp shrinking and growing effects as best we can. And that was a ton of fun. I had so much fun working on that one too, just because it was very much just focused on one thing. I don't think the camera work on that one was incredible, but I don't care, because that wasn't the focus of that video. So yeah, just focusing on different things for each video helps a lot, just so it's manageable. And then, I don't know, you level up each time, you know? You learn new skills for each one that you can bring into your other videos, and gradually it just becomes second nature, and you're doing what was a challenge the first time you did it is now just something you can do easily.
Exactly.
For me, with the medium that we work on and with the videos that we do, I think I appreciate the fact that it's a full package and that you don't really get one without the other, unless it's, you know, action figure photography or audio dramas. But because this is so hands-on and with a multitude of elements to make it work, I can't pick a favorite specifically, or I can't say which one I enjoy working with the most, because it's not like I can properly color grade something if it's not well shot or well lit. It's not like I can animate something that isn't well written or isn't overly detailed. So you kind of have to dip your finger into every sauce and taste them all, because you are the head of this operation that you call your video or your project. And so making sure that all of those elements are brilliantly juggled for you to create what you want to create is the fun part for me. I don't necessarily want to say I'll slouch on something because I enjoy working on, say, the filming aspect more than I do everything else, like the sound design or scoring part. Again, it's the full, you're wearing multiple hats, but it's just one hat, really, of this multifaceted arc.
That's a really good way to put it. I was going to say that I have kind of a similar approach.
Don't say both.
Don't say both, and don't say it varies.
Don't say yes.
But I was gonna say that my process is similar to Javy's, because of the fact that I try to focus on different elements, and it is an experimental process for me to test out different things in the trial and error sort of way, and focus on one particular element and really double down on it. I was trying to find a note where I wrote out my reactions to different content and how I specifically broke it down, what I was working on with each project. But I can, at least off the top of my head, talk about Nomad, because with that project, I was focusing on fight choreography and the camera moving.
And everything was thrown at you too, right? You had to take care of that all in like 48 hours to make sure every component is as well balanced.
I did that in 48 hours. So I've always been a huge fan of the camera sort of being kind of a character in and of itself. I love when the camera is in motion, and I love when the camera is capturing as much of the atmosphere and the environment with the characters as possible. So doing all different kinds of camera movements, especially in a medium in which you don't have to worry about the practicality of the camera, compared to like live action where you need like a crane or a dolly or a gimbal or a stabilizer or a bunch of tech equipment just to do a certain shot. With this smaller scale and the form factor of figures, you could use little Lego vehicles with wheels and just kind of make your own little dolly and sit the camera on it. I love kind of having the camera move around within any given space from project to project. I love when I can have the camera circle around characters or kind of push in or slide from one viewpoint to another. I love to follow the action with the camera and encompass the viewers into that a little bit. It kind of gives them a little bit of a sort of the video game effect where you can kind of just position the camera and the viewpoint from different angles and just kind of have it always be going with the flow of it. So I have two of them. I have a Lego Night Bus from Harry Potter, and I have the Lego Ford Anglia from Harry Potter. And I've used both of those. I've modified them both a little bit to be do-it-yourself kind of dollies. In the super duper cut of Nomad, which it was on the cutting room floor of the original shot, I was filming from one camera on a set tripod, on a stable tripod, an aerial angle from above, at the same time as I was filming from my phone on this Lego car dolly that's pushing in at the same time. So I was filming from both of those angles, and I had the chance to sort of, in the edit, decide which one I wanted to use. But having the camera sort of take on different perspectives and approaches, that's one of my favorite things, along with the shot composition. What exactly is the camera going to see? I have worked with other elements too, like I love framing up different things with the foreground and background. I try to keep in as open of an aspect ratio as possible. I don't really screw with that all that much. I like to keep the viewing experience as open and as full as possible, capturing as much as I can on camera. So really the camera itself and what it is showing is kind of my favorite thing to work with. The lighting, the composition of the background and stuff, the color, the aspect ratio, all that stuff, that's kind of a post-production thought. I really don't think so much about that going into the shoot, other than just make sure I have enough lighting, enough stuff in the background that makes it feel authentic and rooted in reality. In terms of framing, just have enough headroom, have enough space for all the characters to sort of breathe. I don't want anything being cut off by the camera or the view, anything like that. So it's kind of an all of the above answer. It's kind of, I like to work with all of it, but if I had to single it down and isolate it to one particular variable, camera motion and the camera's point of view overall and how that factors into the final vision, that's kind of my consistent favorite element to work with. Because you never know where you can put the camera. You never know where one shot can speak so many different volumes from another shot, which tells a completely different story. But both present something that's very fun and very artistic in terms of creative vision. With that said, let's try to knock out these final 3 points. Hopefully these aren't as lengthy. I feel like they might be a little bit easier to answer. So, when it comes time to actually shooting something, and this is just a general preference, there are some people that like to keep it as practical and as grounded and as real as possible. It's kind of like the Christopher Nolan shtick. And then you have some people who can work completely off a green screen or blue screen or chroma keying. Zack Snyder has that approach quite consistently. The Russo brothers have that approach, and there's only the bare minimum of actual tangible elements within the shot with set pieces or anything like that. Do you prefer to try and capture as much as you can authentically in camera, or do you prefer to sort of manufacture your shots in post-production? Or does it vary from project to project?
For the most part, I just do effects and stuff like that in post, just because I have a lot of foam sets that I've built that it's easy to utilize those. Some shots I end up just putting a fake background in behind it. If I'm trying to get like a shot of like the city or something like that behind all of the skyscrapers or something like that. But I feel like just doing effects in post is easier. I've done them where they're just practical ones, like with the ones that come with the different figures or using cotton or anything like that. And I feel like that looks fine. It looks great. I just usually forget when I'm actually filming it because I get in the zone and I'm like, all right, and then there's a big explosion there we'll put in, and then yeah, cool. Just out of laziness or than like actual like preference. Because I feel like they both look fine. I think for most like laser effects and that kind of thing, it looks better with digital ones than like the practical ones. For me, I know some people might take them out of it more if it's like, no, the toy should have like a toy kind of effect, which is a fair argument. It's just a personal preference.
Right on.
How about you?
I try not to be so anal retentive about being one or the other. Like, some people really, really love the use of green screen, and others love shooting everything practically. I think it should be a balance, especially because stop motion asks you to use your imagination in more ways than one, whether that's in post-production work or everything done practically. You know, the van interior shot was done practically, but the exterior shot of that van, it was a magic trick, essentially, the illusion. It was forced perspective to make you think that it was bigger than it actually was. So when situations call for that, you're going to kind of have to, right? You don't really have the option to do it practically if you don't have a 1/12 scale van with you. So if you have to shoot it with green screen, you might have to do that. And I'm talking again about Under the Dark because that was the most recent thing I worked on with that juggled all of these tricks. But for the ending shot of, again, spoiler alert, of Commissioner Gordon seeing Batman on the rooftop, that background was initially going to be green screen, but because I felt like I could do better with the volume technique, as I dubbed it, with a practical screen, the LED screen from my computer monitor that I could use to transpose as a city skyline, I figured, why don't I just do it? It's going to look better on camera. It's going to feel, the lighting isn't going to change, and it's going to be very accurate to the scenery, and it's going to serve the story in the best way possible. Plus, all I got to do in post is, merge those clips together and do the color grading. And so usually whatever helps the process is what I go with, and whatever is more aesthetically pleasing. Because chances are, if you're using green screen, you got a lot of processing to do, and you got to jumble a lot of it to look as realistic or as accurate as you possibly can. But then there are those scenes which, some are just impossible to do practically. So do the best you can to do it practically. But if you can't, it's no big deal. You can do it with visual effects, because that's the name of the game.
Yeah. I was going to say that, oh man, I'm really lucking out with the whole, it varies from project to project. Take a trick shot every time I say it varies from project to project.
Eat a Skittle.
Eat a Skittle. My approach is constantly changing because it's an experimental process for me. This ain't old news. I am repeating myself here, but same story with this question.
Michael has all these musical numbers that he's become a broken record.
Yeah, at this point. Emphasis on the broken. But, oh no. I like to shoot certain things practically, and then other times I'm able to assess the fact that this can't be done practically given my skill level or given my experience or given my resources. So certain stunts I try to, it's kind of interesting actually. I've only recently tested out using flight stands because for the longest time I hadn't had flight stands. And I'm of the personal mindset that I don't really like to see flight stands in my own work because that kind of breaks my personal illusion. Obviously, different animators have different approaches to whether or not they want to use a flight stand or whether or not they care to digitally remove it. So instead, I would try to do a shot on green screen or blue screen, try to perform the stunt that way. Maybe I have the camera filming from up above and I have the figure on its side. It's like a segment in Whose Line Is It Anyway, where they do it's a game where they're literally acting out scenes while they're laying on their sides and their backs. The camera's above them. I do that sometimes to execute certain shots, and then I just hope I can stitch it together and patch it together in post-production. And then other times, that's way too much work. It's a lot easier to just go in and have a practical element and try to utilize that practical element or background or set piece rather than try to worry about the coloring or the potential shadows or light flicker. or the lighting consistency from the background elements to the foreground elements that you're trying to insert into the mix. So you don't want to make it seem like a figure is too out of place from the background that they're in within limitation or reason. So it all kind of depends. I love to shoot stuff practically because there is a different vibe when you're shooting with stuff that's actually there and actually tangible. But at the same time, it's also just as fun to experiment with what isn't there and how you can force something to exist in a certain way without it actually physically existing with a certain set piece. In Bats v. Danvers, I have a shot of Shazam crashing into a pool table. And the first part of that shot was completely done on a green screen. And then it cuts to a practical shot where I actually threw the figure onto the table and I stitched the green screen shot into the practical shot. And sometimes blending those two methods might get you the result that you're looking for. So it's definitely easier to shoot practically, but you might be able to expand upon your imagination and the limits of your resources more. And it's also more cost effective than buying expensive dioramas or spending money on the resources to create your own dioramas and set pieces if you use chroma keying instead or digital effects instead. And there's also the argument to be made about whether or not you prefer practical blast effects or magic effects. Certain action figures come with those static, lightning pieces or gun flares or jetpack boosters, all that kind of stuff. Whether or not you want to use those things or maybe tissue paper or construction paper versus digital effects that you either have to manufacture yourself or rip from a CGI animation or from someone else's fan-made work. There are so many different options for you, and there's so many different places that you could seek out digital effects, or if you want to buy practical effects, try everything, test it all out. It's really cool, it's really fun, and it's worth it.
Because again, you have your own spin on things, and you want to copy other techniques, but you also want to have your own stink on it. But that's coming from the mouth of Michael, It All Depends Stealthabotte, ladies and gentlemen. So
yeah, I do think overall practical is easier to learn and harder to master. I think definitely more accessible at the beginning, but then as you try and get to do more complex stuff, it's a lot harder to pull off.
Right. It's a growth process, and if you're one of the people who believes that doing everything practically is better, then by all means. If you're another person who believes that doing things digitally would be easier, then also try that out, because again, you have different experiences and you have this whole combination of things to balance.
You never know what you're going to run into. Trying to do a shot practically versus trying to stitch it together. There's definitely more time on the front end with trying to do it practically, but a lot less time in post, whereas the opposite is true for a digital effect. You might have to spend a lot more time trying to pick apart the different elements in order to force it to work. And who knows, maybe if you try to film it practically, it's just not working, then you have to do it digitally. Or you do it digitally and you're just not satisfied with the results, and then you have to go back and try it practically.
Read the room, trying to see which shoe fits and making sure that you run with that.
And it's a good idea to maybe get other people to take a look at it too, whether or not they're in the animation game or not, to see if suspension of disbelief is applicable, if your eyes are seeing it as okay, but theirs maybe not, or they're seeing it as okay, even if you're maybe being harder on yourself with it. That's another element to throw into the mix.
One last piece of advice that I can give would be sleeping on it is really important, because if you think that a certain shot is off, or you might not think it's the best that you can make it out to be, then go to bed first, and then when you wake up, you have a relatively fresher set of eyes to see what you made and have a completely different judgment on it, or maybe have the same judgment on it depending on how your nap or siesta turned out.
Same can be said for the opposite way too.
Yeah.
You might think that your shot is incredible, and then you wake up the next day and you're like, wait, I really thought this was good.
Right.
So
exactly.
Who knows? That can happen too. All right, 2 left. How we doing? How we holding up?
I love how you're just counting. I love how you're constantly like, oh no, we got 2 left.
It's because I wrote more bullet points on this outline than I usually do. I usually try to keep it to 4, but we had 6 on this one. So
We can get through it. You're doing great.
thank you. Likewise. And obviously, we don't even have to tell Javy he's doing great because he's better than both of us. So it's fine.
Thank you, Javy.
Okay, so I think we kind of answered this question already a little bit based on what we were talking about earlier on in the episode.
Right.
So this is going to be kind of just like confirming. When you prep a shot, do you use other sources of inspiration for reference, or do you make every shot as much your own as you can? Do you try to isolate your work from the influence of other auteurs, potentially?
I actually think my answer is going to surprise both of you and the viewers. My answer is it varies.
Ooh, that's a new
Because,
one. That's a new one.
Yeah,
What?
right?
It varies.
Inconceivable.
It varies. But yeah, sometimes if I have a specific idea in mind, I'm going to go with my gut and what my idea is. Just like when I had the like ghost layer of like whoever Taskmaster was copying next to him as he was fighting. That was an idea I had because I thought that would be a cool way to show his powers besides just having someone do a move and then he just uses the exact same move
Which
on them.
was super innovative, by the
Thank
way.
you. I'm actually surprised I haven't seen that before because I feel like that's a better way to show his powers. I was mainly worried about if it would be too distracting from the fight scene, but I think it turned out well. So like shots like that, where it's just from my brain, I just do what I'm thinking. But even with that, that was an idea I had, but I used reference footage. Like when he was copying Captain America's moves, I took that from the Cap versus Batroc fight in Winter Soldier. So it's a blend of it. So it's not even it varies. It's a blend. If this was a Baskin Robbins, we've got 32 varieties, but we got the twist cone as well.
Yes.
All right, Danny, how about you?
Yeah, with the same thing goes with I guess in every instance you have a source of inspiration because there is no way you're going to make something new. Maybe original, maybe in your style, maybe you have a specific take on it, but it's most likely something people have seen before because everything that you do is just a manifestation of things that you have collected over the years, and they are just being expressed in a different, more structured fashion. I'm constantly referencing movies or TV shows that I've watched, seeing how a certain shot affects me emotionally and how that relates with the audience to see if it will affect them in the same way that film affected them. Because, again, you have so many elements to juggle, whether it's themes or tones or genres, you have to make sure it works. And so, for something as grim as Under the Dark, I go to my favorite TV show yet again for reference, because it's so fitting that the unbridled violence of a hitman would work so well for criminals and mobsters in Gotham City. You gotta, I guess what I'm trying to say is you gotta pinpoint, and you also gotta correlate certain things to make sure that what you're doing is consistent and you know where it's coming from, right? So you're not gonna make something comedic, but at the same time shoot it as if it were a drama, unless that's what you're going for, obviously. But yeah, so constantly looking to media for it.
Who knew what works for a hitman also works for a Batman? My answer is going to be, believe it or not, this is not sarcasm here. It's actually going to be short and sweet. It varies. That's all I really have to say. There's a balance between watching what other people say and what other people make and how they do it and what I want to do with it.
Okay, how about this? To broaden our horizons, do you, in recent, and this is welcome to Tangent Talk, do you, in one of your recent videos, have you referenced any specific visual or auditory medium before that you tried to adapt into your video? And if so, which one was that and for what scene?
Oh, okay. Oh.
Okay.
Do you have an answer, for example?
Again, I'm going back to Barry because that was number one inspiration for Under the Dark episode 1. There's a scene where Troy is dressed as a cop and he shoots the approaching guard because his cover's blown, and that shot of him shooting the cop is pulled directly from a shot in Barry, and it's framed exactly that way. And so I thought, hey, this works well enough, and I didn't really know how to shoot that shot in a dynamic way that would express character in the same way that the Barry shot did. So that's how I pulled that off.
So, because to cap off the question before that, I do look at other films and TV shows and other videos while also putting my own unique spin on all of that influence when it comes to prepping shots. With that said, I'm very referential and kind of meta in terms of how I approach certain forms of making videos. In particular, Nomad, in the Coming Attractions video that I recently released, I teased a sort of shot-for-shot, almost recreation of Captain America Civil War a little bit, but with my own spin being Bucky is in a chair in the middle of Tony and Steve. Bucky is literally the middle, the objective of both of them, but they're on opposite sides of that objective. Bucky is facing towards Cap because Cap is able to see his true face and his humanity, while Tony has Bucky's back towards him because he feels Bucky has turned away from him and betrayed his trust by the truth of him having killed the Stark parents. So sometimes it's a little bit more creative in that way, and then other times it's far more direct and far more exact. My most recent video, Somewhere Over the Mando, which was a song parody that actually kind of stemmed from this podcast, I was basically trying to recreate this behind-the-scenes clip of Robert Rodriguez playing a guitar with the Grogu animatronic on set of the series. So I literally recreated, to the best of my abilities, the blue screens in the background, the desert war machine stand-in for a dark trooper. I had a character with red sunglasses and blonde hair. I had a character who was wearing a cap, but I traded that for an actual cap. Haha, I'm punny. Walking in the background. I had someone with long hair, but instead I had the Mezco Daredevil because he had the long bandana ties to his mask.
And for fans of The Hunt, Angelo Torres makes a cameo.
Yeah, Angelo Torres is in there too. I kind of tried to factor in all those different elements while also having Mando without his helmet while he's playing his rifle, which is kind of a stand-in for the guitar. So I quite literally tried to recreate that entire shot, but spin it a little bit more so into what the parody was trying to be.
And for you, Javy?
Yeah, sometimes I don't even just, it's more of an idea. So for like the Hulk versus Thing video I did, in the Fantastic Four, the World's Greatest Heroes animated show, I don't know if you guys have seen it at all, but there's one episode where Ronan the Accuser decides to take steroids and beat the crap out of the Thing while everyone else just has to watch. I'm explaining that poorly, but that's basically what happens. And like throughout the entire fight, the Thing is just getting completely destroyed. And he just keeps getting back up because like the fate of the world's at stake, and the Grandmaster is just going to blow up the earth if he loses. So the rest of the Fantastic Four were like, just chill, like just, you're good, you can stay down now, it's okay, we'll figure something else out. And he was like, nah, this is what I gotta do. Like, and like his heart and determination ended up being what the Grandmaster was like, all right, yeah, you're cool, you win. So like that character trait, I guess, of Ben Grimm is what I wanted to bring out in the Hulk versus Thing video. Because, I don't know, I feel like for the most part, action scenes are cool when it's just like action for the sake of action. But the ones that really stick with people, and I think why that scene stuck with me and why I wanted to translate that in my own way was because when you can use action to reveal character. When you show the audience something new about the character or your take on a character, what makes that character special through action, that's when it's going to be more interesting, more fun, more engaging for them as well. A lot of my earlier videos were just characters standing on a desk and then just go 3, 2, 1, fight. There are a lot of questions I got in the comments, and then just questions that are naturally going to get asked of like, why didn't this happen? Why did so-and-so win, kind of thing. And I think just by putting the characters in unique situations like that, where we're not expecting the Thing to beat the Hulk in a Hulk versus Thing fight. I don't think anyone was upset that he lost. He knows he's not going to win. He's just got to delay the Hulk or like wait until more help can come. That makes it more engaging already because it's not just a brawl between two giant guys. It's one has a clearly different goal than the other, and the other one's just kind of there.
And if I'm not mistaken, for that video, you did reference the Hulkbuster versus Hulk Age of Ultron fight for a particular shot where Thing takes a car to the face and then Hulk punches him through it.
Yeah. So, yeah, there's references within references to something. So, like, yeah, the story was based off of one thing while the, like, choreography was based off of another one. So there's my answer to that question.
Well, thank you for indulging me with tangent talk. Now back to you, Michael.
All right, well, good news. We got one last question, and again, this one might not take too terribly long. This one is directly aimed at Javy. You've had to utilize your visuals to exaggerate different powers and abilities of different characters. Is the Taskmaster power set your favorite way of exhibiting a power set, or is there another character that you enjoyed using the image to showcase what their powers are?
I don't have an exact answer for that because it varies. Sorry.
Michael, what have you done, man?
I almost spat out my water. I wasn't expecting it again.
Michael threw originality out the window.
I wasn't even trying to do that. What I was going to say was my answer differs based off how you look at the question.
Gee, good job. Change the word, now all of a sudden it's completely new.
Because if you look at it from which one I think turned out the best or the most unique, definitely I think the Taskmaster one was my favorite just because of how it showcases abilities in a different way. Now, if you're asking me which one was the most fun to film, probably not his, because I had to film him doing the move, and then I had to film someone else doing the move the exact same way, and then I had to superimpose the images on top of each other. So that was very tedious. So I'd probably do that again if I use him in the future, but I'm not going to like it until I see it on the finished product. Then I'm going to like it. Whereas like Absorbing Man, I think it turned out pretty well, but I hated him. He's never showing up in a video of mine again. I hated changing how he looks in every single frame, whether it was in After Effects or whether it was in Photoshop. It was annoying. It differs based off of if I'm looking at it from a creator standpoint or from a viewer standpoint.
Right. And that's what I love about your style. You blend these things so perfectly together that it just feels like it's part of that world. Sometimes you don't even have to over exaggerate something to make it seem, it's fluid and it's in character. Mr. Fantastic comes to mind. Like when he looks into the vial or when he looks into the microscope, he stretches the legs and it's very much in character and it's a simple way of showing his powers, but you don't have an arrow pointed at it going, hey, look, I did the thing with his legs because he's stretchy. So it's you do it in a very subtle way. So I'm incredibly fascinated by how you're able to pull through and make that all look stunning on the screen.
Thank you.
This isn't another question so much as it is just a comment. I love how you also blend in a fair amount of post-production to your visual style as of late, particularly the Thing's bruising. You painted each bruised rock on the Thing in your Hulk versus Thing battle. As he just kept getting like more and more hurt, you had like purple and pink and red and like all these different colors that you had to go frame by frame, it seems, trying to paint into place, and just the dedication to that, as well as like the eye animations, the mouth animations. It seems like it's drawn. So that's like a whole nother level of animation on top of the stop motion animation. It's actual digital drawing animation too. So it really just demonstrates the commitment to your craft, and it's admirable, applaudable, love it every single time I see it. And
while still staying true to your original self, because I remember watching Hulk versus Wolverine, that's a throwback, which is still a Trickshot video, but you get to see throughout the years your evolution and really get to see how you've improved and evolved as a creator, keeping that charm intact. You haven't really gotten rid of everything that makes your videos magnificent to watch. And it's a pleasure that we got to talk to you tonight. We appreciate you letting us in on your thought process.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more what he said.
Yeah, no, I had a ton of fun being here. Thank you guys for having me. It's fun to actually have a good medium or a reason to talk about what I'm doing.
With that said, thank you to everyone who is stuck with us listening to this podcast. Hopefully you can find the links to the Discord server where you can talk to each of us. We hang out from time to time. We have different events as well where we're watching different movies, TV shows, asking for feedback on our projects, playing games, and a whole bunch of other fun stuff. Feel free to join our community if you so choose. It's here for you. You can also check out all of our social media handles. If you're watching on YouTube, all of that's on screen. If not, we do have a link where you can find all of that information. We also have stuff in the description below of the YouTube video too that you can click on.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned something about explaining something badly. So
oh yeah, okay. To close things out for this episode of the podcast, each of us are going to describe one of our own videos to the other two badly, and we're gonna see if the other two can guess them based on the context clues that we give.
As our guest, I think it's only appropriate that you go first, so pick a video, any video.
Let me see. Explain a video badly. Okay, I think I got this.
Aggressively scrolls through your entire channel, like trying to figure out which one it is.
All right. Worst way I can describe this video is that the smartest men in the universe die to uncontrollable funk.
What the fuck?
That's so obscure.
Daniel, I hope you don't have this.
I mean, I think it was only I wanted to be kind and let you.
No, I am not answering this.
No,
first.
I believe
that
you
is
did.
not kind. That's
what you
cruelty.
told me before we started recording the podcast. You did tell me you wanted to answer this first, so please,
No,
please do.
That is a lie. That you are Sigmund Fraud.
All right, Javy, describe it one more time.
Okay, the smartest men in the universe die to uncontrollable funk.
Die to
uncontrollable funk.
See, that's the part that screwed me.
Is it a parody, or is it like an actual video? So is it
No,
so it's the Tony Stark, Reed Richards parody that you did way back when. Am I close to home?
Yeah, we're talking about the same thing.
All right, fantastic.
What's the official title of that video?
It's
Love the Way You Move stop motion parody.
The one by
Michael,
slightly,
you're cheating, man.
Slightly left
You're
of center.
cheating, man.
Okay, so I feel like Daniel and I should get half points each because I found the video and I got the title, but he knew the video.
Yeah, I decided to go obscure. I saw that one and I had a lot of fun making.
Yeah, I
that
knew
one.
it had to do with Reed
And
Richards.
I was on the right page too with the fact that I said, okay, Reed Richards is one of them.
Yeah, you got it. You're on the right track. But yeah, if anyone hasn't seen the original video by Slightly Left of Center, you definitely should. It's hilarious.
All right, Daniel, your turn.
All right. It is.
This shouldn't be difficult.
Wow. Okay. It is a character drama featuring several characters, all of which are in a race against time to make sure that nothing explodes. They are on the clock because someone in particular, whom they're with, is in on something that they weren't expecting.
Is that Batman Under the Dark? Episode 1?
Nope.
Oh, well. Because I was thinking, how the one guy blows him up? Spoiler.
Yeah, exactly.
So was it Under the Dark?
No,
I thought it was the Avengers Fallen Heroes.
There are 3 possibles, actually, because I have 3 videos that are, very catastrophic and dramatic and has a bunch of characters and race against time for some. I really like the race against time element in my videos, huh?
Is it Fallen Heroes?
But, yeah, it was Fallen Heroes.
Hey, okay.
Yeah, I was going to say,
choice.
because you got the Super Soldier Episode 3 Part 1, you got Under the Dark Episode 1, and you got Fallen Heroes. Gotta have Fallen Heroes.
Okay.
And I'm actually,
right.
I was actually referencing, for this singular character, I was referencing something, part of the plot that wasn't even in the video, so the fact that you got that is pretty impressive.
I was bamboozled.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, boy. A lot to live up to here.
Yeah, Michael scrolls for half a second.
Hey, I have more videos than you do.
Bunch of trailers.
Hey, okay, it's still more videos.
Below the belt, huh?
Right in the Stealthabotte. I'm going to pull a Daniel a little bit, and I'm going to try and apply this to multiple videos. Featuring my musical talents, this video is an outside-of-the-box way for me to express myself using the characters from a franchise that I love.
That's vague as fuck.
I know.
Feast on that, suckers.
Can you repeat the poor explanation one more time?
Yeah, he did. Clearly, Michael did a good job considering Javy needed repetition, poorly explaining it.
It's explaining something badly. I don't know. I think I'm doing a great job with
You
it.
did a great job doing a bad job.
Featuring my musical talents, this video showcases an outside-the-box way for me to express my talents using characters I love.
Because there's an obvious one that comes to mind, but I'm trying to think. I feel like that's the red herring.
Allow me to help you narrow it down. I'm singing in this video.
Oh, that narrows it down, doesn't it?
It actually does. You said my channel's nothing but trailers, so that should help.
I got an answer for it.
Okay.
Is it coming
Go for it.
attractions?
Javi, do you have a different answer?
The obvious red herring one is Somewhere Over the Mando. But we already talked about that one, so I don't know if you'd do that one again. Unless you're trying to psych me out and picking the obvious one. Because you don't think we picked the obvious one. And now you're just in my head.
Is tired Michael really capable of psyching you out? Is he really that clever?
I hate to say that you both got it wrong.
So is it? Oh, okay.
It's waving through a window.
Yeah,
The Dear
that was my
Evac
second answer. That was my second
parody.
answer.
The second answer was going to be Hulk dance.
I didn't sing in that one, but that's a good answer.
Wait, Michael, you're not Sean Paul?
I knew you didn't sing in that one, but I still just wanted to mention
or
Hulk
Sean
dance.
a lot. Sean Paul.
Michael, we have to talk about this. I didn't know you were Sean Paul. This is a revelation.
But yeah, so I was talking about the waving through a window parody that I did back when, because I was going to see Dear Evan Hansen, and it got postponed. I was supposed to have seen it already, but it's been on the brain a little bit. So I thought, I sang in that video. That was a fun video. It's kind of crappy in quality, but it was very outside the box.
Yeah.
Because no one has ever really done musical parodies using stop motion or using characters from existing franchises. And I love to sing. I love musicals.
Yeah.
I thought it would be a fun, poetic way to sort of tie in Transformers to a musical that I enjoy. And since the character's name is Evac, and that's one letter off of Evan, it was literally a match made in heaven for me to make that.
A match made in Evan.
Plus, it wasn't a trailer.
A match made in Evan. I can't believe I missed that. You're better at this than I am. But yeah, Somewhere Over the Mando, Coming Attractions, both of those would be good answers as well.
Oh, thanks for the backhanded compliment. We got it wrong.
Yep.
So we all got it wrong and we all got it right at the same time. Are there really any winners? In life, there are no winners.
It's all just yes.
I guess you could say it varies.
Oh my god.
When will you ever stop?
Okay, I'm done. Cut the check.